When Emily woke on October the 5th, she already had a mental blueprint that laid out everything necessary for a successful day. Every location was mapped and a complete schedule was already prepared. Friday was grocery day, so Emily planned to go into town food shopping. Along the way, Emily had planned a few deviations. Emily planned to squeeze in a little browsing through a few department stores as well as drive past Walnut Hill Park, where she took Donald as a child. She also wanted to squeeze in a drive in the vicinity of her old law firm, Jacobs, Stern & McCabe. Before starting any of the things she had planned, she needed to get dressed. Emily reached into her closet and quickly threw on something. She then quickly checked the mirror to place her hair into a functional ponytail. As she left her room, she realized that she had left her list of shopping items on the bureau. She turned around and instinctively reached where she had placed the list, and then saw the little archaeologist bottle and smiled. Emily grabbed the list and the bottle. She opened the vial and placed her index finger on the top of the opening and turned it barely 10 degrees right when she began to feel the liquid. She returned the vial upright and placed her new fragrance along the right side of her neck and along the inside of her left wrist, then fastened the top. Emily inhaled deeply and returned the bottle to its place on the bureau. She then went downstairs to leave. It was such a beautiful day, and Emily thoroughly enjoyed her day out. As she drove from one shop to the next shop, she occasionally looked up at the sky and saw beautiful sky art. The clouds seemed to entertain her, and she wondered if she was the only person who was seeing these amazing spectacles. In one moment, she looked up and saw an almost perfect cloud-shaped stallion. In a separate instance, she was certain she saw an unfamiliar yet easily distinguishable male face, complete with plump cheeks. The roads were smooth and not very congested at this time of the day. This turned out to be perfect for Emily and for the cars behind her, as she realized almost too late that she nearly missed her exit off the interstate while admiring the cloud art. She had to make a stunt double-like correction behind the wheel of her vehicle in order to make her turn. Emily stuck with the major parts of her plan throughout the day, but did make fun deviations also. As Emily parked at her final stop before home, she briefly entertained the strange but recurring thought that she was getting extra attention all day from multiple strange eyes that were not her husband's. She strongly felt that this was not a bit of mental trickery or high imaginary fabrication like the cloud art that her mind and imagination may have made earlier in the day. Emily did not feel threatened by the attention. She had no reason to feel that way. Even as she exited her car and weighed the true likelihood of being watched, she wasn't even 100% sure that these men and women were, in fact, stealing glances at her. She even asked herself and answered, "How does it feel like people are watching me? Do I have something on my clothes or on my face? No, I checked before exiting the car. I'm just being hypersensitive or over-imaginative." She was totally oblivious to exactly how especially beautiful she was and how sensually she appeared to be dressed. It was not until she strolled through the frozen food section that she had a second glimpse of what she put on. In that moment, she looked more closely at the opaque reflection staring back at her. The reason she chose those particular clothes from her closet escaped her. Every man in the market stole glimpses. Some were more trained and less obvious than others in the process. They tapped into their pre-relationship, pre-marriage training to carefully be present with their significant other and appreciate the appropriate, wonderful allure of a woman who had taken the extra time to simply yet purposefully show the innate power of her beauty. Other onlookers were obvious and their gaze apparent as their eyes widened and their jaws slightly lowered as they passed her by. These amateurs felt compelled and could not help but to look over their shoulders to further examine her as she passed by. They were not content with a single look and in turn made the critical mistake that their partner, who initially was focused on the shopping list, clearly noticed. They both, amateur and pros, looked at her with desire in their eyes. They each had a wanting glance. Even some of the women looked on at her in awe. One or more of the women complimented her shoes, earrings, and outfit. Others were jealous and judgmental as they noticed their significant others looking for an inappropriate amount of time. This Friday's grocery day was not like any other she had experienced. Emily felt alive and fulfilled in one of the many areas she often did not. She welcomed the feeling of being more than a mom. This was no substitute for the intellectual stimulation she missed from studying and practicing law, but it just felt great to feel appreciated in this way. Emily suddenly felt excited and eager to see Stanley later that night. When Stanley returned home from work, all of his senses were immediately dialed in. The house smelled of his favorite meal. Every metallic and wooden surface seemed to gleam, and not one magazine or knick-knack seemed to be out of place. The place was spotless. Emily greeted him at the door with the softest of kisses, her lips and Stanley's just barely touching. She looked absolutely amazing. Slightly startled by the greeting, Stanley displayed a small bit of jealousy and insecurity. He asked Emily who she was dressed sexy for. Why are you dressed so sexy? Where's Donald? Normally reserved, timid, and nervous when being forward, Emily turned around and told Stanley to unzip her. And like a moth to a flame, his hands moved and found the invisible zipper. Emily turned back around and spoke to Stanley. I'm dressed this way for my husband. Donald is in his room waiting for dinner, but he's already had snacks. Do you want dinner or me first?